The FIA is hiding something, and McLaren might be the first victim. This leaked file changes everything. If what we've uncovered is true, the entire 2026 season could be rigged before the first race, and McLaren engineers are already panicking behind the scenes. Why are these new technical regulations laser-focused on one team? And what's in the FIA's own report that they never expected to go public? You need to see what's really happening under the surface, so smash that subscribe button, because this isn't just drama, it's a full-blown Formula One conspiracy. From the moment the FIA's 2026 regulatory package was announced, teams started racing not on the track, but in design rooms and data centers. But buried deep in the second technical annex, behind complex aero stipulations and hybrid configurations, was a set of clauses that raised immediate alarms at McLaren's Woking headquarters. These changes looked routine to the public. But to the engineers who understood how the 2025 car had been built, it was a message in plain sight. The concept McLaren was betting its future on was about to be legally constrained, or worse, rendered uncompetitive. At the heart of this issue lies the FIA's shift in energy deployment regulations. The governing body plans to cap battery output delivery during acceleration phases, a rule that disproportionately affects McLaren, whose aggressive energy recovery strategy depends on those very moments for maximum performance gain. Unlike other teams that rely more on straight-line speed or aerodynamic downforce, McLaren's edge has come from how they deploy electric power in corner exit phases. But under the new cap, that system is essentially nerfed. And that's no coincidence. The second red flag? Chassis compliance and deformation under aero load. McLaren introduced a flexible rear wing mount in 2025 that passed static tests but clearly provided performance gains at high speed. It was praised as legal genius until now. In a subtle paragraph inside the 2026 Aero update, the FIA defines a revised testing method for load zones that McLaren's current configuration simply cannot pass without structural changes. This is the kind of adjustment that can take months to solve, and McLaren has just weeks before the development freeze begins. What's fueling the fire internally is how selectively these rules seem to apply. Teams like Mercedes and Red Bull, whose power unit designs follow more conventional cooling and deployment profiles, are largely untouched by the change. Sources close to the technical working group suggest that early lobbying in Geneva may have influenced the final structure, and that McLaren, who pushed aggressively for high-voltage battery allowances, may now be paying the political price. In a paddock where alliances shift with the wind, McLaren may have made too many enemies too soon. From a legal standpoint, the FIA has covered its bases. Each of these regulation changes is written to appear technically neutral, meaning they're not targeted at any one team. But McLaren's design philosophy in 2025 was unique, and the fact that two of their core technical pillars are directly impacted raises questions. Questions that no one at the FIA has directly answered. And for McLaren's leadership, that silence says everything. Inside the Woking facility, the mood is tense. Engineering leads are now reportedly in triage mode, attempting to pivot the car's concept mid-cycle, something rarely done successfully without massive compromise. The hybrid powertrain needs recalibration. The aero package may need to be stiffened. And worst of all, the simulation models used throughout late 2024 may no longer be valid. That means the entire dataset months of wind tunnel runs and CFD could be obsolete. For a team chasing the championship, that's devastating. And that brings us to the core truth: this is no longer just a technical challenge. It's political. McLaren is not only fighting physics and engineering deadlines, they're fighting perception, influence, and control. If they adapt, it will be seen as submission. If they protest, they risk alienation. And if they fail to compete in 2026, the narrative won't be about regulations, it'll be about McLaren cracking under pressure. Whether by coincidence or quiet intent, the FIA's rulebook may have just put a ceiling on McLaren's future. Inside the McLaren Technology Center, engineers are in full containment mode. What was once a refined, agile development cycle has now been disrupted by a race against regulation. Instead of refining updates and focusing on performance gains, key departments are being reassigned to compliance solutions. Energy deployment systems, flexible aero mounts, and even chassis rigidity settings are now under urgent review. The goal is no longer optimization, it's survival. Because if these issues aren't solved before the homologation deadline, the team could be locked into an uncompetitive design for the entirety of 2026. One of the main challenges is that McLaren's 2025 package was built around a forward-thinking concept, a high-voltage, high-efficiency deployment curve designed to outsmart both Red Bull and Mercedes in slow to mid-speed tracks. It worked brilliantly in the early half of the season, giving Piastri and Norris a noticeable advantage in acceleration zones. But the new FIA thresholds undermine that very concept. With tighter caps on MGU-K power release and more aggressive monitoring of electrical boost during throttle overlap, McLaren's data models are no longer aligned with real-world viability. Everything has to be rewritten. Even more concerning is the internal feedback from test simulations. Sources close to the team confirm that recent track simulations using the post-regulation package show a drop of nearly 0.3 per lap on high downforce circuits like Hungary and Singapore. That may not sound catastrophic until you realize that in modern F1, 0.3 can mean starting on the second row, or outside the top 10. In a field as competitive as 2026 is shaping up to be, that gap is not just performance-related, it's existential. There's also the matter of how rivals are reacting. Teams like Red Bull and Aston Martin have reportedly already shifted their CFD strategies to align with the new parameters, giving them a critical head start. Meanwhile, McLaren has been forced to backtrack, revisit foundational assumptions, and in some cases, re-engineer components that had already been frozen for manufacturing. The cost? Delayed parts, compressed testing schedules, and a heavy psychological toll on the design team, which until recently was riding a wave of confidence. Leadership, too, is feeling the pressure. Technical Director Peter Prodromou is now coordinating emergency design reviews, while Andrea Stella is said to be in regular contact with the FIA's technical delegates, seeking clarifications and pushing for review clauses. But the FIA's position remains firm: the new regulations are set, and there will be no exceptions. That leaves McLaren boxed into a narrow window of potential fixes, each of which requires trade-offs: more drag, more weight, or more heat management complexity. In the background, a second crisis is brewing: software integration. The electronic control units, ECUs, that manage hybrid deployment have to be recalibrated, and according to insiders, McLaren's current mapping systems are incompatible with the latest compliance protocols introduced by the FIA's technical bulletin. Rewriting those systems is not only time-intensive, it introduces the risk of unseen glitches, energy mismatches, and deployment failures. These aren't just annoying bugs, they're potential race-ending vulnerabilities. Ultimately, McLaren is now stuck in a brutal balancing act: redesign just enough to pass FIA scrutiny without compromising the unique identity of the car. Because if they go too far, they risk becoming just another midfield team running a generic template. And for a constructor that clawed its way back to the front with innovation and bold engineering, that would be the worst outcome of all. In a sport where timing is everything, McLaren now has none to spare, and the rest of the paddock is already pulling away. While McLaren scrambles internally, other teams are wasting no time capitalizing on the chaos. In Formula One, advantage is rarely just about lap time, it's about information, timing, and psychological leverage. Mercedes has already initiated what insiders call a targeted rebriefing of its 2026 concept. Their technical team is now focusing on interpreting the new FIA rulings in a way that not only boosts their own performance but exposes the loopholes McLaren can no longer exploit. It's not just adaptation, it's preemptive control of the narrative before the season even begins. At Red Bull, the approach is even more aggressive. According to multiple paddock sources, Red Bull Racing has started using its influence in the technical working groups to frame McLaren's hybrid system as borderline non-compliant, even before final validation. Christian Horner and his engineers are reportedly pushing for further clarification on how deployment curves should be monitored in real time, a move that could place even more scrutiny on McLaren's car. It's a classic Red Bull tactic: apply political pressure while appearing to advocate for fairness. Ferrari, meanwhile, has taken a different route: recruitment. With McLaren's internal structure under strain, the Scuderia is quietly identifying aerodynamicists and software engineers who may be open to jumping ship before next year's car reaches full production. It's a strategic play. Not only would Ferrari gain insight into McLaren's vulnerable systems, but it would also strip Woking of the very people best equipped to fix them. In a year where development timing is critical, the loss of even one key technical mind could derail an entire upgrade cycle. This coordinated offensive isn't accidental. Teams understand that the best time to strike is not when a rival is slow, it's when they're distracted. By targeting McLaren now, while their leadership is locked in meetings, their departments are overextended, and their simulation data is being revised, rivals are setting themselves up for a much stronger start to 2026. And in a development war that begins before winter testing, that early head start could be championship defining. The FIA is staying publicly neutral, but that doesn't mean their role is passive. Several team principals believe that the federation is selectively leaking interpretations of the rules to different teams. These subtle hints shape how each team builds their prototypes, while making it harder for McLaren to know exactly what their rivals are working toward. This creates an environment of confusion, where uncertainty becomes a weapon and McLaren, already off balance, is being boxed in from all sides. Back in Woking, the mood is shifting from urgency to isolation. Senior staff are reportedly limiting interactions with rival engineers in the paddock, fearing data leaks or misinterpreted conversations. Test schedules are being adjusted last minute. Confidentiality has tightened. But all of this secrecy comes at a cost: fewer inter-team dialogues, reduced visibility into the broader technical field, and most of all, a growing sense of paranoia that only feeds into their rivals' hands. The result is a subtle but powerful form of warfare, one where McLaren is fighting multiple enemies, in multiple directions, without clarity or control. It's no longer just a battle of car performance. It's a test of resilience, trust, and leadership. And unless the team can find a way to consolidate its focus and re-establish authority over its own narrative, 2026 may slip away before the first race lights go out.